Well, well, well. Welcome back. Hope everybody had a happy holiday fun time fuckaroo spectacular over the weekend. Did ya? Did you have a good time? Well, welcome to That's Good Broncos. Post-Christmas, what do we have to live for in the football world edition of That's Good Broncos? I'm Brandon Perna, and I apologize for the half-assed Broncos coverage this past weekend. But I'm really tired of football games being played during Christmas and on Christmas Eve. As an avid fan and as someone who makes videos about the NFL, who is not paid like any NFL employee, even though I've never sexually harassed anyone, it really fucks with my holidays. And I celebrate all of them. That's how you maximize this time of season. If football's on Christmas Eve, I can't watch it the way I need to while opening presents and drinking my morning wine. What is morning wine? It's just what you think. Regular wine you drink before noon because it's fucking Christmas, and now I have this growler to sip my morning wine, thanks to my cousin Lucas. So let's discuss what's happening with the Broncos in this final meaningless week of football for them, and make dumbass guesses about what will happen once the season concludes. This episode is sponsored by SeatGeek. There's a link in the description. Use my promo code ThatsGood, and SeatGeek will give you $20 off your first ticket purchase. You can get tickets to the final Broncos game this weekend, or you can get concert tickets, comedy tickets, any kind of tickets you want to get. Get your tickets at SeatGeek. When you open the app, that's what it sounds like, and that's why I like it. Get your tickets at SeatGeek. Okay, so the big news today is that Paxton Lynch has been named the Denver Broncos starter. He will start the final game of this season, the Broncos season finale. And I haven't been this disappointed about a season finale since I accidentally sat through the entire series of 13 Reasons Why. Thought it was a follow-up to 10 Things I Hate About You, and boy was I disappointed. And again, Paxton Lynch will start, but the question is, will he finish the final game? And does it even matter? Are the Broncos actually trying to get a good look at him this weekend, or are they just saying that because it's the easiest thing to say right now? I don't know anymore. A report has surfaced that Vance Joseph's job might not be safe, which is in sharp contrast to the reports that emerged after his late two-season wins that said the Broncos are not expected to make a head coaching change. If this new report is true, the one about Vance possibly getting fired, to me that means Elway has an inside lead on a new head coach that gives him a good old-fashioned football chub. That's my speculation on top of speculation. The only thing I know is whenever I praise a Broncos offensive lineman, it's a fucking curse. Donald Stevenson had a good game a couple weeks ago. I mentioned that here on this show, and then he responded by immediately struggling again. I said Connor McGovern was shaping up to be a decent guard, and then he struggled against Washington. So to benefit Connor McGovern, I'm going to say this. He's a terrible guard who won't be a 10-year starter for the Broncos ever. The opposite of what I say is true this season, and this should help us in the long run. Denver will not find the quarterback of the future this offseason. John Elway will downward spiral and finish his career getting fired by a new owner who takes over the team and sells it to St. Louis. The Broncos won't win a Super Bowl next year or ever again. There. I'm doing my part to help save this team. Don't say I don't care. Garett Bolles will lead the NFL in penalties every year until the day he retires, or reveals that he is actually a cannibal who eats sinners. A controversy the NFL has yet to face, but will most certainly mishandle. Bolles has been up and down all season, and I'm not sure if he can be a good tackle in the NFL. But he did finish tied for second for most flags drawn this season with 15. The funny thing is Seattle had the number 1 and number 2 spot locked down. Number 1 on the season is Seahawks tackle Jermaine Ifedi, and number 2 in a tie with Bolles is defensive end Michael Bennett. In fact, Seattle led the league with the most penalties on the season so far with 140. That's 1,242 yards going against them, and they're still in the goddamn playoff hunt, even with many key defensive players injured. If that doesn't tell you how stupid good Russell Wilson is, I don't know what will. And I mention this because on Sunday, the Seahawks beat the Dallas Cowboys, even with 11 penalties, which accounted for 142 yards against them. Seattle only had 27 more yards of offense than they did in penalty yards. And I believe this is relevant to the Broncos because if they find a quarterback, a Kirk Cousins, a Case Keenum, a Magic Mike, it will make up for a lot of current deficiencies on the offense, and the defense will be able to carry the team even when QB X doesn't have a great game like Wilson against Dallas. I'm not saying Keenum or Cousins or Magic Mike is Russell Wilson or will fix everything, but when we look at this season and we look at so many of the mistakes made and the fact that the Broncos have lost by more than 20 points 4 times this season, it feels like they are beyond fixing, right? But I don't believe that's true. A good quarterback has a domino effect on the team. The Broncos defense, I believe, becomes a dominant force if they have a competent quarterback scoring points and not turning the ball over. If you don't think Kirk Cousins would be leading this team into the playoffs right now with the defense allowing 88 rushing yards per game and 196 pass yards per game, both top 5, you're crazy. The other teams with defenses statistically similar to the Broncos right now are the Vikings, Jaguars, Steelers, Eagles, Titans, and Chargers. All of those teams will be in the playoffs except for the Chargers and possibly the Titans if they lose this weekend, which could put the Chargers in, assuming the Chargers win. But to be clear, they're all competitive teams right now. To have a defense that is still performing despite playing with one of the worst offenses in the NFL should keep us all hopeful a good quarterback will instantly make the Broncos, at the very least, a wild card team in 2018. Obviously, that's a giant assumption, assuming the defense would still be good and could remain healthy for 2018, which there's no guarantee of. We don't know what Elway's plan is this offseason. We have no clue which Broncos will be Broncos in 2018 and which current non-Broncos will become Broncos. C.J. Anderson may get 1,000 yards this year, despite the fact that no defense has feared the Broncos' passing game all fucking season. Insert a quarterback who throws the ball effectively, and the run game should only improve. Cousins, for example, is QBing behind the 26th ranked rushing offense in the league. I mean, just look at what Cousins did against Denver. 40 points and 5 steals. What other quarterback in the NFL is going to play both ways and get the ball back for himself? None. How is this stat not being talked about more? That is insane. This has been a weird season. At times, it felt like this was the worst Broncos team I've ever watched. But then they snap an 8-game losing streak by shutting out the Jets. And I don't care if they're the Jets, a shutout's impressive. It reminds me that there is still real talent on this team. Outside of the quarterback, I don't know how many pieces the Broncos really need to move around or change to be a great team again. There are fair questions all across the board, starting at top with the head coach, special teams coach, skill positions, offensive line, linebacker depth, and salary cap questions for high-paid players in 2018. Now, it's easy for me to sit here and point out every mistake Elway has made in terms of personnel decisions these last 2 seasons, but being a successful GM in the NFL isn't fucking easy, and there's no blueprint for sustained success other than have a top 10 QB and a great head coach you can rely on year after year. And if you find those 2 pieces, then the rest of your educated guesses on players tends to look good. That's all any NFL GM is doing, trying to make educated guesses about people. And people are unpredictable, so sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong, and even sometimes when you're right, an injury can make you wrong. So for this weekend, all I'm really rooting for is a final game where all of the Broncos players leave the field healthy. I want C.J. Anderson to crack 1,000 yards, and I hope Paxton Lynch, for his sake, plays a respectable game. Other than that, I hope they lose, because right now they have the 6th pick in the draft, which means with the loss in this final week, they will at the very least pick at number 6. And I think you can do a lot of things sitting in that position. We don't even know if Vance Joseph will be the head coach in 2018. Financially, it makes no sense for the Broncos to fire him, but he has done nothing to prove he deserves to be the head coach for this team moving forward. That is why drafting a quarterback is such a gamble for the Broncos right now. A young QB's success is so heavily dependent on landing with a team that is the right fit for him, unless he's like a Peyton Manning or Andrew Luck type guy. How can John Elway say, yes, Josh Rosen is the right fit for our staff, when he can't even be sure this staff is the right fucking staff? Until I know who the head coach will be next year, it is impossible for me to say any of the college quarterbacks are the right guy, and it's even tough to say which veteran QB would be the best fit here in Denver. Simply, we have to wait. To have a better idea of what the best course of action moving forward for the Broncos is, we have to wait. Anything can happen in the next couple months. For example, what if the Vikings offensive coordinator, Pat Schumer, becomes available to be a head coach? All of a sudden, you have to believe Case Keenum would be the best long-term solution here in Denver if he could play with Schumer, the guy he's having success with right now. There are dozens of scenarios like that could instantly change what Elway wants to do and what we should want him to do this offseason. By the time free agency actually starts in March, this Broncos roster could look vastly different. So I will wait until the pieces start to fall before I start making terrible sweeping predictions about this team. I can, however, accurately predict that I need your Patreon support to keep me fed during this offseason. God, I'm gonna need you more than ever. I've got big dick shoutouts for Patreon supporters Nick Pollock, Hugo Fisher, Timmy Samuelson, and my sister Courtney McKibben. Basically, my sister has agreed I'm worth $5 a month, as does my father. And they know me pretty goddamn well. So if you like this channel, and you trust my dad and my sister, and you want videos all off-season, your support at patreon.com/thatsgoodsports with a monthly donation is how I will survive. Thanks for watching another episode of That's Good Broncos. Subscribe here on YouTube. Please, Jesus Christ, subscribe. Give me a follow on Twitter at Brandon Perna. If you're on Facebook, share. Just share the videos, please. Sharing really helps spread the word about some dickhead talking about Broncos football in his basement. Better than most, by the way, in my opinion.